Welcome to the Better Two podcast. I'm your host, Donna. Today's guest is Uli Bella from Ozomatli. And well, the intro is going to be slightly different because this is being recorded on June 10th. And the reason why I'm telling you the date of the recording, which normally I wouldn't do, is because right off the bat, we talk about what's going on in California, in Los Angeles. So we talk about that, and we talk about the world in general and being a caregiver and the tour that Ozomatli is doing, and how Richard Simmons actually conducted an orchestra that he was in. So tune in. Hi, Uli. How are you doing today?
How's it going?
It's going okay. How's it going for you?
It's okay. It's been the environment and the circumstances here in LA have been a little bit tense. So, you know, I think everybody's kind of feeling it right now, a little bit. So, just in my area, um, yeah, ICE was just going off yesterday, and they were like in front of a graduation, high school graduation, waiting for people to come out, and it's just a mess, honestly. But yeah, so anyway, it's going, and thankfully the band just finished a little. We're in the middle of this tour right now, and we're going to be doing a big show this Saturday, and we'll probably be paying for the protest in the morning too. So a lot of cool things to look forward to.
Well, and that's the one thing I was going to say. The images, depending on what news service and what social media you're looking at, yes, Ted Cruz, yes, I'm naming somebody. He posted something from 2020 with cop cars on fire. He did not, they're not showing you necessarily what is going on fully. They're showing you the narrative. The national news is showing you the narrative. And yet then if you log into social media, you see people that are peacefully protesting and dancing. And there's nothing, there's this whole dichotomy of what they want presented so we can get the National Guard in. What's really happening? And yes, I'm sure there's agitators, but there's agitators anyway. And who do we know? And do we really know if those agitators are really the peaceful protesters, the protesters?
What do they call it? Provocateurs, agent provocateurs.
Yes.
And I've experienced that, and I've seen that. So, one of the more interesting examples of that was one time back in the day when the whole post DNC rally where we got like shut down. I remember like there was all kinds of police presence and all kinds of stuff. And I remember going to a barbecue spot, I went to this barbecue spot for lunch, and there was this like group of like 8 or 9 cops there, and they were having lunch with these 3 individuals that I would say I could have seen them at a fish show. They had dreads, they looked very hippie-ish. And I was like, oh, okay, you see that? Like those are dudes that are working for the forces, like right there. And they get, I mean, every single political movement, I think at one point or another, especially if it's critical of the government, whether right or left, they're going to have somebody up in there. And that's kind of like I think the MO of the government, I don't know if you ever saw the documentary on, I think it was on Netflix. I don't remember, but it was on Malcolm X. And they had a mole in Malcolm's own security team, like they were that close. So, I'm not surprised that there's agent provocateurs in the movement and that there's people who purposely create chaos just to give, or maybe to set off violence or vandalism.
And I mean, I think that happened up in Wisconsin when we had the protest in Wisconsin, which I don't live in Wisconsin. I live in Illinois, but they had people that went in and burned up stuff just because. And then we had the whole shooting with Kyle Rittenhouse because of this. And I mean, it's like we when we protest, we need to try to keep as much as of a level head and not go into the looting and the rioting. And I mean, I know I know you remember Rodney King. And that's the
Oh
thing.
yeah.
They're sitting here saying, oh, there's riots going on. And I'm like, I'm old enough to remember Rodney King. I'm old enough to remember those TV images. And granted, I didn't live there, but I remember the images and how bad it was.
Mm-hmm.
Even
And
even what
yeah.
even what you're seeing
No, no,
now
no.
is not that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And as much as it's fucked up, can I? Okay, curse. I'm
Yes, you
sorry.
concur. No, that's
Oh,
fine.
okay, okay.
We're
As
good.
much as it's fucked up that this isn't LA's first rodeo with
No,
National Guard
no.
and with all these things. It's like uh, uh, um my biggest problem too is that if you really think bringing in the National Guard and Marines is going to de-escalate things,
No.
you are in for a surprise because LA doesn't play that shit. There's crazy people here who don't care, and they might not. They either might be on a political bent or they might be on a criminal bent, but they don't care. They're gonna create, do what they do. And the sad fact is that yes, there's going to be people who are going to get hurt on both sides, and it's going to be ugly if it continues this way. And I don't particularly, I don't want to see people get hurt. I don't want to see people, become pawns for this administration to be like, you see, look at them. You see how they are. You see how they are. Look at them. They need this, because then it's just an excuse for and opening the door to a new level of authoritarianism.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at I was watching The Daily Show because sometimes you need some levity and some comedy into the situation because it is so screwed up. But, they posted that he shared something with Stephen Miller basically saying, I want 3,000 people for ICE. I want those people arrested every day. 3,000 people a day. This is off, and granted, I can't really listen to our fair leader, our unfair leader, but he said on the campaign trail, I only want to go after criminals and da 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 da. No,
And
sir.
which honestly,
Yeah.
and I remember hearing that parroted by a lot of the Latinos for Trump.
Hmm.
And, don't worry, they're only going to go for the criminals. They're only going to deport the people who deserve to be deported. Yeah, right. And here we have Stephen Miller, who, I mean, he's been a dickhead since high school. I don't know if you ever seen footage of him when he went to Santa Monica High.
Mm-mm.
He's a local boy, but he's a local dickhead, and he's always been a dickhead. So it's like he's just playing the part, man. And if there's anyone that I have a little bit of scorn for, is him. Like this guy, man. And he gives off definitely evil villain vibes.
Hmm. Hmm. All he's missing is the white cat from Dr. No and, the
Yeah, yeah,
unicorn.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. I don't think cats even like him.
most likely not. Most likely not. And that's the thing, though. I mean, when did we decide that we have to have a quota? A quota. People are human. I mean, this is human beings, and this is the problem with this
Mm-hmm.
whole administration. Besides the deportation issue, we want to take health care away. We want to we want to take Meals on Wheels. We want to take all of this stuff away. For what? So you can
To
get
simp to
richer?
simp for the billionaires, yeah, to simp more for the billionaires. That way the rich can get richer. You know, it's a sad state of affairs, but I think if anything, um, and not to sound like an accelerationist, like, oh yeah, we need this, but the pendulum swings,
Hmm.
and maybe we get someone half decent up in there after Trump. Maybe not. Maybe he's like, no, I'm going to be president forever. But I don't think that guy's going to last, honestly, with his diet.
Well, somebody said that there's a picture going around of him with the belt, the UFC belt this weekend, and that if
Mm-hmm.
you look at his pants, he has a catheter. And yes, all this could get me in trouble, and I really don't give a shit. But yeah,
Oh, I mean, what? No, there's already rumors that he wears
yeah,
diapers. And then, man, I don't know if you remember that whole incident with the Pope passing,
yeah.
and he was the only guy in a blue suit. And it's
Hmm.
like, why is this guy in a blue suit? Well, the rumor is because he shit himself before, and that was the only suit that he had right there,
And he was falling
And he had a
asleep.
Or yeah, yeah, yeah. He had a blowout in his Pampers. So it's going to be an interesting next couple of years. I think particularly to kind of bring it back home to like what we do is that music and the sense of community that music can give and the sense of like belonging that we can have at shows could help us get through this, can help us feel like we're finding our tribe, to find the group of people that's going to support each other through these tribulations, and I think more than ever it's needed because we're all locked into these algorithms, social media, and I feel that it creates a certain amount of stress and fear in everybody that's just no good for us, and we have to find a way to ground ourselves in a way that keeps us healthy.
Oh yeah, I mean Saturday and Sunday when all this stuff was going on, I had to put my phone down because I was getting sucked in, and it's like, and you don't know how many bots are making comments, and you don't know all the facts that is somebody really a person
Mm.
here or somebody doing this
Oh.
and what's being manipulated. But I want to comment because you brought it back to music. The name of your tour is the Revolutions Tour, and
Hmm.
that's kind of perfect, is it not, for what is going on in the world overall? It's like you're seeing this, people are paying more attention, and there are revolutions going on, even if it's not as public as what's going on here. There's still people that are taking a stand and trying to make
Hmm.
change around the world.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, we're calling it the 30 Revolutions Tour because, obviously this is our 30th
Right.
anniversary. But yes, there's a lot of things going on in the world all around, whether it's in Syria, whether it's in Gaza, with Sudan, whether it's here in the States, all kinds of things are going on constantly. And it could definitely um, wear people down, if you're constantly being exposed to like really ugly images of war and you name it. I don't think we're built for that as human beings, to be constantly be exposed to these stress markers, and be, so I think we have to be able to be clear headed and grounded to be able to come up with positive and healthy solutions to these type of problems.
Hmm. And that's, the other thing for me is any other time to have cancer, it would have been okay because you're like, okay, I can get through this. It's all right. But having it now, you look at the world and go, Is this really a battle I want to fight? Because is it worth going on? What is the country going to look like? And what is the world going to look like 2 years from now?
Mm.
And that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
frightening. And I don't think we look at that bigger picture with the people that are like, look at, besides dealing with your normal stress, somebody that's going through a divorce, anything like that, that's a stressor.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to put this on top. And I mean, watching the ice raids, here's somebody, like you were saying, here's a graduation. It's supposed to be a crowning moment for somebody, and you have to worry about, is my family about to be ripped apart?
Yes, yes, yes. And yeah, a very good friend of the band's and who's worked for the band, and she's currently going through chemo and stage 4, and it's really fucked up. But at the same time, that's when you know us can reach out and help each other and
Hmm.
have each other's back, call each other. I made a big batch of cannabis butter just for her, to help her out with the chemo, and just whatever we could do for each other, even if it's just calling them, it's
Hmm.
reaching out, because sometimes um it's so important to check in. It
Yeah.
really is. It's so important to check in with each other, seeing where we're at, because people are going through huge things, like you mentioned, like whether
Hmm.
it's battling cancer, battling, the economy.
Yeah.
How am I going to do this? I'm living paycheck to paycheck. It's like huge stressors, and so I think it's so important for us to check in with each other.
It is. And I want to, there was a song I was listening to Saturday night, and I thought, how timely is this? Because there's still pieces of that song about the stock market crashing, things that are still repeating, even though that song was written years ago. It's
Hmm.
still
Hmm.
timely today.
Very, and it's sad, kind of, if you think about it. It's like stuff that we were ranting and raving about when we first started as a band, and it's still, applicable today. So, yeah, um, it's so easy to be nihilistic a little bit about it.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
what is the meaning of any of this? But I think we create our meaning and we create our community, and um, I think that's one of the things that I want to project, especially as we play in these towns. And, the other day we played in Boise, Idaho, and we hadn't played there in a long time. And honestly, the crowd was such a beautiful mix of all kinds of folks, people of color, LGBTQ, people, all kinds of people were just in this mix. And I've almost felt like this is the tribe that showed up to the show because they wanted to feel,
Mhm.
some communion with other human beings.
Mhm. When I told my bestie you were coming on, she's just like, "You have to tell him that, after I she told me the song After Party. She's like, "I used to get ready to go out to that song. I love that." And I'm like, "Okay." She's like, "You got to tell him." I'm like, "I will." But I mean,
Okay.
it was something that just meant so much to her. She was just lit up when I
Uh-huh.
told her because she's like, I have such fond memories of that song."
Oh, well, funny thing about that song is that it kind of started as a joke. It was like one of those things that we, after the shows, we would just kind of sing this little chorus ditty to each other, and then it ended up, evolving to a full-fledged song, and definitely a fan favorite.
Yeah. Yeah, she had good memories about it. And I know we've talked about some heavy, heavy stuff, but I want to talk also about your tour because you're giving $1 from each ticket sale to help mental health with two organizations.
Hmm.
And I think that's important because I don't think we really focus on mental health of being in that industry, being in the music industry when there is a need for it.
Well, yes, as a musician, it's the stressors. It's already well known, right?
Mhm.
How many unfortunate colleagues, other musicians have left this reality under terrible circumstances because of mental health, and let alone, okay, besides musicians, just all of us,
Yes.
all of us, and particularly even men,
Yeah.
because unfortunately, a lot of men feel that's like a sign of weakness that they need mental health help, you know? And as someone who experienced it firsthand, for about 3, 4 years, I was my mom's caregiver when she was going through dementia and diabetes and hospice. Um, it wrecked me,
Hmm.
and at a certain point, I remember just waking up at like 3 in the morning in panic and just like, what's going on with me? My body was just operating in the red constantly. My cortisol, my stress, everything was just, to the point of, at a certain point, I had to ask for help, and I had to be like, hey, what can I do to get me through this?
Hmm.
And I reached out and talked to some therapist friends of mine, and they're like, yeah, therapy. And also, if you need medications to help regulate certain things, cool. And I came out of that, um, even though personally I feel like I'm changed. Like after that experience, it's like I'm never going to be the same, right?
Right.
Especially, once my mom passed, which interestingly enough, today is the day of her passing, or anniversary of her passing today. So it's so important more than ever, which I personally tie in mental health with health in general, right?
Mhm.
And it's unfortunate that we live in a country where healthcare isn't provided for all, isn't a universal thing, and it's constantly being shaded as this communist plot, and da 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 da, and why do we need to, like, every first world country in this world has a decent healthcare program for their people. And I can't understand for the life of me to this day why United States continues to feed into the status quo of obscene profits for the insurance companies, for the pharmaceutical companies, and all this other things. And yet, people still defend the status quo. They'll be like, no, this is the best system in the world. It's not. I'm sorry,
No,
it's not.
don't.
And I've experienced it. I have family in Europe. I have family in Japan. I have family in Canada. They don't have to worry about being bankrupted by healthcare bills, by medical bills. So anything we can do to help, and I think that's part of the thing is that, by us partnering up with this organization, bringing awareness to it and contributing money to it, we can like make a change.
I agree. And there's two things I was going to bring up. One, real quick, I have a friend who's a dual citizen, Canadian and American, and she needed a surgery. She went to Canada.
Yeah, yeah,
She went back to Canada.
yeah, totally. And the naysayers will say things like, "Oh yeah, well your taxes. Oh yeah, well I'm sure you didn't get any service until 8 months after, or whatever. You're on a waiting list." Listen, I know my cousin had some surgery and she paid less than $10,000 for this surgery that would have probably costed over $80,000 here in the States. You know, it's obscene that we are still in the position that we're in where people can't get health care and proper health care for free because hey, if you want to talk capitalist languages, let's be like dirty pig capitalists. If we want production, right? If we want profit, why wouldn't we want a healthy workforce? Why wouldn't we want people who are working and don't have to worry about crippling medical bills? A healthy population is a productive population. So supporting universal health care to me is an investment in our own population. It's like putting money back into your business. It's going to work out for everybody. But obviously, like the way things are and the way, especially now, it's not going to happen. Right. So, it's like who was the closest person who even mentioned it? Maybe Bernie Sanders the
Yeah.
last time.
Yeah.
Hillary kind of mentioned it a little bit, but then, fell off of it, but I think that's one of the things that really sometimes makes me feel like I don't live in a first world country, like this is ridiculous, I've, funny story. Like I had my wife's Japanese and she had an aunt come from Japan and she had like a rotten tooth, it's like, we were like, oh man, your breath kind of stinks. Like you're something's going on in there. And it's like, yeah, she went to the dentist out here to get that tooth pulled and asked for the receipt because she said once she went back to Japan, she could pay, they would reimburse her for that.
Wow.
Like, imagine, like, come on, like that would never happen here in the States,
No.
like they reimbursed her for the dental work that she had here in the States that she paid for out of pocket,
I think, and that part of the problem is the people that are in power, they have never learned or lived a life where they were necessarily needing and wanting. They have luxury, they have good health care. They have, what I think it was Mike Johnson who said, well, they need insider trading because they can't afford to live off of $148,000 a year. Excuse me?
Mm-hmm.
But they don't understand what it's like for a normal person. And I think if you're going to run for office, you should at least experience a month where you don't have that much money, where you are living worse than paycheck to paycheck, where you need food stamps and stuff, and see how you could handle it. And then maybe the next month you have to live like a person in a median income, but living paycheck to paycheck. Do you think they could handle it? I guarantee you most of them couldn't. Some of them could, but most of them couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, they're just to ask any of those people how much a gallon of milk is.
Mhm.
Ask any of those people, like, what it takes, to survive in society. And the disconnect is just, is just laughable, at a certain point, and the other day, this guy I know, this friend of mine who has this string company. But the thing is that he married this Mexican woman and ended up in I think Tijuana, and so he's over there. And he brought up an interesting point, because he was like, immigrants don't come to the United States anymore. It's not worth it. And I was like, okay. And one of his points is that to pay for a coyote, some clandestine guy to sneak you into the country could be $5,000 up to $10,000 even, if more, not more,
Mm-hmm.
And his point was, listen, man, if you got 5 to 10 G's in the bank to spend on that, you're probably better off than most Americans.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
you actually have some money to hopefully like wiggle around for emergencies or whatever. It's like people are living paycheck to paycheck here, and it sucks. And if you do come, yeah, you go to New York, you make your money, but guess what, you're living 8 or 9 to an apartment, and your cost of living is up. And sure, you could send some money back home, but is it really worth it at the end of the day? So he brought up an interesting thing. It's like, for immigrants around the world, this carrot on the stick of what the American dream is just a fallacy at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to give you credit about being a caregiver, because I don't think a lot of people talk about caregiving. Caregiving is such a grueling thing because you put yourself second in most places. And that's why you ended up with the panic attack and everything, because you were so focused on getting everything done that needed to be done for your mother that you put
Yeah,
yourself
yeah,
secondary.
and it's funny because I guess I'm at the age where a lot of my colleagues and a lot of my friends are going through the same thing, and some of them are doing the caregiver thing. Some of them can't handle it. It's very intense. And personally, especially from the culture that I come from, it, to put my mom in a facility was just unthinkable at that. And I just couldn't even fathom it. It's like, no, no, no way. I'm all hands on deck around here. We're taking care of mom. You know, I don't. Unless it's absolutely something medically that I can't handle. Because I even remember after they amputated one of her feet. It was a below the knee amputation, and they wanted to put her in a facility for the aftercare. And I was like, no, I'll do the aftercare. I'll do the injections. I'll do whatever it takes, to help my mom, and it, like, yeah, like I said, it changed me as a person,
Oh, yeah.
to nurse a loved one that is not going to get better.
Hmm.
It's not. And you're just kind of waiting for the hammer to fall, and that triggers the anxiety, the depression, that triggers the panic attacks, all these things that as a human being, it's like I wouldn't want anyone to experience it, but guess what, that's life. And I had to experience it, and I had to do it, and zero regrets. As much as it fucked me up, zero regrets, because um, my mom didn't have to pass away by herself. She was at home, comfortable as all hell. I mean, I was in San Francisco at the time, but the caregiver I had hired to help me out, too, was like, yeah, your mom, she had spaghetti, and we put her to bed, had her medications, and that was it. And I was like, we did right by mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
She passed away peacefully. She went to bed, and that was it. And I could I could only hope to have a death like that.
Yeah.
In Spanish they call it una dulce muerte, a sweet death. Like where there's no suffering, there's no pain. It's just slipping from one reality to the next.
Hmm. And my husband had been sick for quite a while, and this month, June, will mark the fifth anniversary of that. But he had
Mm.
been sick for a long time, and in 2019, Because kind of like what you were saying, they're not getting better. I was told he went in for a heart procedure, one of several that he had, and the doctor told me this is going to be, he's on borrowed time. Okay.
Yeah.
And when you hear that and you have to process that, it's not an easy thing.
Mm-mm.
And
Mm-mm.
then you just every day it's kind of like, okay, is this going to be it? Is this going to be it? And I picked him up from dialysis and he was in a good mood. He's like, Popeyes has their chicken sandwich on special because
Yeah.
it was during COVID. He hadn't eaten anything. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
no, it's not. And we pulled into a parking lot, got something for the drive through. They had to park us. And I was so glad because he died in the car. He just
Oh
all
my
of a sudden
goodness.
just fell over. His lips were blue and he fell over and passed out. They got him back, but it took him an hour to get him back, and his brain was never going to be right. And I knew that. And so they put him
Mm.
on life
Mm.
support because I was like, I had to process it. And he was on life support for a week. And they tried waking him up. And then I had to make that choice to take him off of it. So
Yeah.
I'd rather have how your mom passed. I mean, granted, he passed quickly, but still having to make that choice I don't wish that on anybody.
Yeah. Well, my condolences first off.
My
And
condolences to you about your mom.
yeah, and yeah, it adds a certain intensity to life when you're dealing with it like that,
Mhm.
and prior to my mom, I had to host my mother-in-law in hospice. My wife's mom was staying with us when she was battling cancer and COPD and all these other things, and I remember it being one of what your kind of husband went through. It's like, I want a Popeye's chicken sandwich. Well, you want a Popeye's chicken sandwich? I'm getting you a Popeye's chicken sandwich.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, um, like I remember her asking for a certain kind of noodle that she liked that was like all the way in downtown LA near Chinatown. I'm like, I'm gonna go get that fucking
Mhm.
noodle for you right now.
Mhm.
You want a steak? I'm gonna grill you a steak.
Mhm.
I remember one of the times that I felt so like content with the process of hospice or whatever it was. She was such a big baseball and sports fan, my mother-in-law, that I remember we plopped her in front of a Dodger game, a baseball game, and I cooked her a steak. And she was just so happy just to be eating the steak and watching the game. And
Mhm.
I was like, I am so happy that I was there to be able to provide that for her, you know? And so, you know, we're all on this boat, you
Mhm.
know, headed towards this ultimate destination, and I think there's this Charles Bukowski quote, it's like that reality alone that we're all going to die, that we're all headed to this should be enough for us as human beings to comfort each other and to love each other a little more and to like take advantage of the time and not deal in these petty things. But, that's where we're at,
Yeah. And I mean, when my grandma came up here after Katrina, it's like she had never had a strawberry frappuccino.
Uh-huh.
And she liked strawberry milkshake, so I got her one of those. And she loved wrestling, so I got a wrestling game for the Xbox. And she could
Hmm.
barely see, so I put it on and I'm playing it. I didn't really want to play it, but I was playing it for her. And my husband comes in and she smacks him, and she's like, smacks him on the leg. She goes, "Sit down. This is a really good match. You need to watch the match. I've seen it before, but it's a really good match." She's like, "Okay." But I mean, it's things like
Mm.
that. When you know somebody, when they get to be when you get to be a certain age, it's quantity over quality. And you know what? If it's going to make somebody happy, why not let them do
Hmm.
something that maybe give them that noodle, go get the noodle, go get the steak, do what you got to do
Whatever.
to make them
Yes,
happy
yes,
because it's not going to
yes.
make them, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Honestly, yeah, I would have done anything at that point. I would have just, what do you want?
Hmm.
You know, I would have
And,
done anything.
and I know, I mean, I looked at your Instagram and I know that things mean a lot to you because you said your dad couldn't afford a BMX bike, so you went and bought yourself a BMX bike.
Back in the day, yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's funny because that BMX bike, I'm a big dude, and here I am with this BMX bike, and I look so overgrown on it. I'm like, you know what? I don't know. After buying it, writing it a lot, I'm like, you know what? Maybe okay, I scratched that itch. Maybe I can give this bike to a kid, and
Hmm.
have them enjoy it.
But the thing is, you got to fulfill it, and there's certain things
Yes,
as a
yes,
kid that maybe
yeah.
you didn't get,
Mhm.
and suddenly it's like, oh wow, I got this. This is great. I
Mhm.
got an Atari 2600 again with all the
Yes.
games and stuff.
They
I
got all the games in
Oh, no,
the
no, no,
unit,
no.
right?
This, yeah, no, this was an old school Atari
Oh,
2600
so you
with
had
the,
to get the cartridges and everything.
yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes,
So
yes.
it was right before Minecraft came out. And my husband looked at me and he goes, "Why are you playing this jangy thing? Look at the graphics." I'm like, "But it's fun. It's what it used to be." And then Minecraft came out and I was just like, "Hey, look,
Mhm. Mhm.
the graphics are the
Yeah.
way they used to be." So I
Yeah.
think when we can touch our childhood, that there's something about just connecting with that makes us happy.
Mhm. Mhm. Totally. Yeah.
So you played first clarinet in the Los Angeles Youth Philharmonic.
Yeah,
That,
I started off on music pretty early because my dad was a violinist, and a lot of music was always in the house. My dad obviously loved classical music and music from Spain because that's where he's from, and my mom's from Mexico, so she grew up with all the music from Mexico, but she was also super into like the classic rock, the '50s rock. Um, so at the time, I think I was either third or fourth grade that I started on piano, and then went to clarinet, and then went into saxophone and all these other instruments. So clarinet, I was able to. I guess I had enough talent and just doing it that. Yeah, I was first clarinet for the Youth Philharmonic in LA, and then I was first clarinet for a couple other orchestras. And there was a moment where I was even considering it like as like, oh, maybe I'll be a classical clarinetist, but yeah, that didn't pan out because I just liked so much other kind of music, especially in high school. I started getting super into punk rock and all kinds of alternative musics, and I just felt that like just playing one style or one thing was not going to cut it for me, for my life. I wanted to play jazz. I wanted to play all these different music. I was in a ska band, I was all kinds of stuff. So, um, yeah, like it was definitely an amazing foundation. I will say that, to be able to be in that world.
but what I was reading too, it said that you had all these different conductors come in, and the one that was the most memorable, you said,
Oh
was
yes, 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 yes. So the story is that there was one of the particular philharmonic youth philharmonic gigs was they had guest conductors. So it was different celebrities, and usually they're not trying to do too much. They're just waving their hands and doing this and this and that. But then Richard Simmons came on and just killed it. It was just like he got first off he got the whole crowd to get up on their feet and stretch out and exercise a little bit, and then he like conducted it with so much like just like energy and vigor that it was just like so cool to watch, and everybody in the orchestra, I can remember the energy was just like, yeah, this is cool, Richard Simmons is awesome, so
but that's the thing
yeah.
when you're performing, and I know you know this as a musician, when you're up on stage, there is that energy between you and the crowd. There's that whole
Cool.
feeling. So having him there, even though you were younger, having him there just generating all that energy, everybody's going to feed off of that.
Yeah, totally. And he was super nice after. He was so cool, and RIP to him too. He was so cool. Richard Simmons is an icon.
Hmm. So, how many dates are you doing on this tour?
Oh God, I forgot now. I think there's like over 60 dates or
Yeah,
something like that. It's something pretty long. And of course it's not just one, like we're breaking it up in chunks for the year. And of course, hey man, we're celebrating our birthday all year.
yeah.
We're this is 30th anniversary all year. So yeah, we're the good thing too is that like um we're you know, we had so many things planned pre-COVID. We were going to go to Hawaii. We had all these things, and then COVID obviously changed everything. And it's been a process to get back to the type of touring that we were doing and the type of things that we were doing. Because obviously at first it was just like We're only going to play locally. We're only going to play, places where it's cool. Da da da. And then so finally, especially like in August, we're doing a full blown East Coast run. On the bus, the whole nine, and hitting all those towns that we haven't played in a while. So it's kind of cool to be able to go back to places that we haven't been to in a minute, and to just reconnect with all the fans.
Yeah, I know you're playing Milwaukee and Chicago. I did see that. And a
Hmm.
lot of people I've noticed have been avoiding Chicago. It's like, okay, I'm not sure why, but
I love Chicago. I love playing there. I've had some great experiences there. Our original rapper, Charlie Tuna, was from the south side of Chicago. So I have funny stories about Chicago. I think it's a cool town for sure.
yeah, I live out further west of Chicago now, but they put in a Hard Rock out here. So we get a lot of
Yes.
we get
Yes.
guest people out here now. It's like, okay,
Oh, they put a Hard Rock by you,
yeah.
not the Hard Rock in Chicago.
No,
So I
they put
remember
a
there was that Hard Rock in Chicago that was like across the street from the Rainforest Cafe
they
or something.
actually
Yeah,
had that went bye-bye. They
that one bye bye,
dismantled
huh?
they dismantled that and the rainforest.
So I'll share a funny story. We were
Yeah,
playing at that Hard Rock. We were playing
sure.
at that Hard Rock, right? And this is many, many, many years ago. And after the show, I was, walking around we're walking out the venue, and these two guys came up to me and they're like, "Dude, that show was so cool. Da 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 da. Hey man, we got this joint, this blunt. You want to smoke it with us?" I was like, "Yeah, let's go. Come on." So
Hmm.
I jump in the car with these dudes, and I'm sitting shotgun, and we pull up to this gas station, and this dude, right after he pumps the gas, he just proceeds to light this blunt up. And, this is obviously still, very illegal at the time and
Oh
whatnot.
yeah, yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
looking around and I'm like, well, hey, man, this is your city. You know what's up. We drive, and I guess it was a cop right there looking at us. And boom, we get pulled over,
Oh
right?
gosh. Uh-huh.
I had the blunt in my little pocket right here because I put it out right when we got pulled over, and I put it in my pocket. They frisk us. They find it. I'm in cuffs, right? I'm in
Uh-huh.
cuffs, and the other guy's in cuffs. And the cop is ready, to take us to jail or whatever. And one of the guys gets on the phone, and then he hands the phone to the cop. Now I don't remember the names of these dudes at
Hmm.
all or anything. This dude, the cop, walks away with talking to whoever it is on the phone.
Hmm.
Next thing I know, this cop uncuffs us and he says, "Get the fuck out of here."
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, my heart was already like, dun, 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 dun. I was like, who the fuck did you call, man? And he's all like, you don't understand. My family's, really tight with the dailies. And I was like, what? And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, okay. And I'm like, I'm not going to say anything else. And then the funny part is that they dropped me off in front of the hotel and they're like, you want to finish this blunt? I was like, fuck no, I'm going to my fucking room, man.
No, nope, 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 nope. No, now
Here,
it's
man.
now it is legal here, and in fact, because you're
I,
talking about making
no, I know,
cannabis,
I know, I know,
yeah.
I know. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
I
for the
know now.
listeners that don't know that, but yeah, my dad, because I'm like the medicine for the nausea for the chemo drugs has side effects, so I'm like, yeah, I'll just make me something with cannabis, and he's like, is that legal there? Because he's in Louisiana and it's not legal there,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
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 dad. He's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, dad, I bought it at the
yeah,
dispensary.
yeah, yeah.
Um, you played some really big clubs in Los Angeles, the Roxy, the Viper Room, and the Whiskey. So, and I know the Viper Room, there's some controversy about, I mean, I know it's closed, but there was going to be a project where they were going to build it and keep the Viper Room kind of sequestered. And then apparently that project's having problems.
You know that the problem with that whole little area is that there's a lot of development. A lot of places get knocked down, and then they just build apartments or anything like that. And thankfully, places like the Whiskey, I believe, is protected. It's a historic place, and I'm not sure about the Roxy. I'm not sure about the all these other places, but the yeah. historic venues, they come and go here, unfortunately, and there are those places that like a lot of people played at, and a lot of people, performed at, and they get shut down, and then what's put after that, just some like strip mall.
Yeah.
So, but pretty much every big venue here in LA, the Greek, the Palladium, the um, all the clubs and stuff like that. We've done the rounds.
You played the Troubadour?
Oh yeah, yeah, many times.
So what's it like
Yeah.
when you go on one of the, I mean, I understand that it's still a stage, but is there a difference to it when you go to this place that's kind of a hollowed hall that a bigger name played from the long time ago? Is there a feeling or a vibe in the place, or is it just,
Oh, for
well, it's
sure, for
another
sure.
gig?
Well, it is another gig, but there is that feeling too. Just recently we played a party at the whiskey, and I've been playing the whiskey ever since I was a young, adult, and but still to this day, I feel the history of that room, all the different artists that went through there, all the different bands, you name it, played the whiskey, and I still even you still feel the history, and you feel that kind of feeling in a lot of places, like whether it's the Fillmore in San Francisco, you know, you feel like all the different, giants, musical giants that went through there.
Yeah, yeah. Will there be any more new music coming out?
Yeah, we're actually releasing a new song, I believe. I think at the end of June or July. It's called Red Line. We just recorded it not too long ago. Um, Raul wrote the tune about it because there's a train called the Red Line here, and it was kind of an ode to the working class of LA. To the people who have to grind every morning and are forgotten about sometimes, and so that's going to be dropping very soon.
I think, that statement right there paints a really interesting picture of LA, because LA is sold to us basically as glitz, glamour, palm trees, all this whole illusion. And I mean, I've been out there once for a week, but it's not that whole ideal. There's realness there. There's real people there. It's not just this whole production thing.
Yeah. One of the impressions that people sometimes have of LA is how shallow and superficial, and how, like, this and that Hollywood. Is there that angle? Sure, there's that angle there. But the vast majority of the people are working just like everybody else in this country, and so there's so much in LA as far that is apart from that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So LA is home to one of the biggest Armenian communities outside of Armenia. LA is home to one of the biggest Thai communities outside of Thailand. LA has so many different cultures being represented here that you can have any kind of, like, you can experience a lot, just from going from neighborhood to neighborhood. And it's a lot more deeper than just the typical Hollywood bullshit.
Kind of like Chicago.
Yeah,
Chicago
no,
had in Louis.
Chicago's the same shit.
I grew up in
Yes.
New
Yeah.
Orleans, and I mean, yes, New Orleans had some culture, but Chicago has much more culture than New Orleans did.
Yeah. And that's the one thing that I've always kind of said about Ozomatli, in the sense that when people ask me, it's like, can Ozomatli be in another city? And I say, you know, each city, a band like Ozomatli can start in any city, because any city, whether it's London, New York, Chicago, San Francisco, where there's a melting pot of different stuff, a band like us can definitely start. The thing with Ozomatli is that it's uniquely LA, in the ingredients, So Louisiana gumbo has its ingredients. LA's gumbo has its own ingredients,
Hmm.
but it's still a gumbo.
It's like Chicago pizza versus New York pizza. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I
Oh, here.
totally get. Yeah,
Yeah.
and even hot dogs. Everybody's got their own hot dog they want
Yep.
wherever. I mean, so I understand
Everybody
completely.
got their own hot dog.
So, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to add?
Um, no, I'd just like to thank all the fans for their support and love for a band. You know, for us to celebrate 30 years together, it's mind blowing. You know, because most, you know, when you're that young and you're playing, you don't think you're gonna last maybe 5 years, maybe 10, maybe 15. No, we made it to 30 years, and the ongoing joke with us is that's the longest relationship any of us has ever been in. You know, we're family, we're brothers. We know each other's faults, we know each other's strengths, we know each other's. We fight, we argue, we bust each other's balls, but we're still family. And to be able to say that, and to be able to to this day still create music together, still play shows together, and at the end of the day, still have dinner together and make each other laugh. That's a huge gift.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I mean, people don't think about bands being families, but they are. They
Yeah.
totally are. So I thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for the interview, and I hope the best for you. And hopefully, we'll see each other in Chicago.
So some of you guys might get a little ticked off about the fact that we went political, but if you've listened to a couple of my other episodes, you know that we have talked about politics before. And in fact, there is a two-part episode where I talked to a gentleman who landed a plane, a gyrocopter, excuse me, on the lawn of Congress because he had mail to give to them. And there was a whole story about that. So this isn't the first time I've talked about politics. And right now, what's going on in the country I live in is kind of disheartening, and it's awful, and there should never be a quota for how many people need to be arrested and removed because it's just not right. And there's so many contradictory moments here. We had Doge come in and say we're trying to cut waste and fraud, yet this whole little BS thing with the National Guard and the Marines is going to cost $134 million. But there's no waste or fraud, and apparently, allegedly, they are setting it up where the people that are in the National Guard, they're on 29-day turnaround, so they're not even going to get paid active duty. But and they don't have food, and because of not being active duty, they don't have a place, they don't have a ration or a stipend to get a place to stay. They don't have stipends for food. So, yeah, there's just a lot of contradictory information, and I think that the reporters that are reporting from around the world are actually giving a more fair shake of what is truly going on. Sure, there are some instigators and agitators there, and there always are because they want to push the needle to try to get drama and cause problems. But in general, as I said, I'm seeing videos of people dancing in the streets for their protest. They're being peaceful, they're not being violent. But because we have a narrative of somebody that wants to create something, well, we have to push it. We have to show you a side that makes you think that everything's falling apart. And it's not just politics, because it's amusing or not so amusing that, as I've said, my dad lives in Louisiana and I live up here. And there's been times when my dad would see that Chicago had a blizzard and he would be like, "Are you okay?" Yeah, and it wasn't that Chicago really had a blizzard, but per them, per the news media, it was Snowmageddon. And just like flooding down to Louisiana. Are you okay? Yeah, we had a little rain. Everything's fine. So sometimes the media pushes that sensationalism. Sometimes our news now, because of the fairness doctrine being removed and a couple other things switching, we now have infotainment. It's all about ratings, just like social media is all about clicks. And we need to try to decipher what we need to see. And something that Yuli touched upon is the stressors of watching this, the stressors of social media constantly playing the story. It's like the car crash theory, you want to turn away, but you can't. So how do we stop this? I mean, yeah, I definitely didn't vote for our person. I don't even like to say our person. And the fact is, ever since the first time he ran, I thought the emperor has no clothes or new clothes. And the fact is, he has people that tell him, yes, yes, yes. And I'm not even sure he's making the choices. But we're stuck right now. And all we can do is stand up. And as I told Uli after we were off air, I can't go out and protest. So this is my protest. Me trying to explain that what we have here is not necessarily the most perfect thing in the world. And, Yuli said it very true. The American dream is not really what you think. It's not the white picket fence thing anymore that we were sold that you could have this. Because most of us are struggling. Most of us don't have, I mean, I'm fortunate, but there's a lot of people who barely have health care. And, I live paycheck to paycheck, and it's frightening because if something were to go wrong, what am I going to do? And that's a terrifying thing. Even like the show, I have some money set aside to keep the show going. But eventually, what am I going to do? So, if you have the chance to go see Ozomatli, I think you should. I think the music's timely, it's fun, and it's a good time. And I think that you're going to find that, as he was saying, if you go to the show, it's a melting pot. And what could be more fun than that? To be around different people, to embrace culture and enjoy it, enjoy life. And that's the thing. Sometimes, especially like for me right now, I can't necessarily go out and enjoy life like I would want to. But that's okay because sometimes we're forced to take care of ourselves. Anyway, on that note, I should wrap this up. And I think, like I said, you should check it out. They have new music coming out called Red Line by the time most likely this airs. And yeah, sorry we went off on a very political rant, but the fact of the matter is Ozomatli's tagline is the soundtrack of LA. So what better way than to talk about what is going on in LA? And hopefully by the time this airs, things have calmed down. But they're talking about keeping the troops there for 60 days. And for what? For this make-believe thing to distract everybody from what really might be going on, like a bill that they're trying to pass that they shouldn't, or, somebody being in certain files that are redacted and they won't release. Or maybe that there was some kind of tampering with machines. Who knows? And maybe by the time this airs, we'll have some answers. But all I know is get ready for a bumpy ride because this weekend is the military parade and we've never had one like this. And I don't know that we ever will. But yeah, it's definitely scary times. So yeah. Anyway, guys, I thank you for tuning in. I thank Fast Susie for coming on. I thank Uli for stopping by the show to talk. And most importantly, I thank you guys for tuning and listening, whether it's morning, noon, or night. I really, really, really do appreciate it. And I'll catch you next time, guys. Bye.